Okay, chapter 8 now of the book of Hosea. This is still continuing on with chapter 6 and 7. This is a continuation of this line of thought of realizing the problems that Israel is having and the destruction that is coming, that they're being warned about, that they're unfortunately not paying attention to. So verse 1, set the trumpet to thy mouth. He shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and trespassed against my law. So this is talking about sounding the alarm. Assyria is going to march against you. It's going to swoop in like an eagle, and it's going to come against you, basically. And why? It's because you broke the laws of God and went away from God. Verse 2, Israel shall cry unto me, my God, we know thee. Verse 3, Israel hath cast off the thing that is good, the enemy shall pursue him. So that's the problem, is they're going to say, but we want, God, you're there, right? You're there to help us. Please help us. Verse 4, they have set up kings, but not by me. So kings that have not been endorsed by God, like David was. They have made princes, and I knew it not. So they're not consulting God to establish their government. They're not getting the blessing of God of who should be their ruler, who would be the ruler that would follow God and his commandments. They're picking them themselves. Of their silver and their gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. So again, idolatry. They're going through idol worship. They're doing things themselves and not including God in their life. This is the opposite of the bee, which is the symbol of God adding that extra component to our life to bless us and help us. Verse 5, thy calf, O Samaria, hath cast thee off. Mine anger is kindled against them. How long will it be ere they attain to innocency? So this is what's interesting, is Jeroboam set up a worship of a calf to prevent Israel from going to Jerusalem to worship. So thy calf, your false god, hath cast thee off. Basically, so even your fake God doesn't want to help you, apparently, because Israel is about to be destroyed by Assyria, and no amount of going after and pleading to their false gods is going to help them. Verse 6, for from Israel was it also. The workman made it, therefore it is not God. But the calf of Samaria shall be broken in pieces. So again, this is that idea of idolatry. If you made it with your hands, how can it be greater than you? If you're the creator of the idol, and the idol is God, are you the creator of God? Can you create gods? How can God be higher than you if you created him? That's the problem, the fallacy of the logic of idolatry. Verse 7, for they have sown the wind, they shall reap the whirlwind. It hath no stalk, the bud shall yield no mill. If so be it yield, the strangers shall swallow it up. Now this is harvest language. Okay, that's what verse 7 is about, is harvesting language. So Israel has caused the wind to come, so a great wind will come and destroy the harvest. Strangers will eat, but Israel will not. So they've sown the wind. They created the wind, but now a greater wind that's a result of that is going to come back around and get them. This is the idea of the chaos theory. If a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the earth, it'll move molecules of air that'll move more molecules of air. They'll eventually move more molecules of air that cause a hurricane on the other side of the planet. That's kind of this idea. You've made your choice. Now there's a consequence that's going to come. That's what that is. And you're not going to get the beneficiary of the choice you made. You thought you were going to do good, but you're not going to be the benefactor of that anymore. You're going to be punished, and the good's going to go to strangers, somebody else. So verse 8, Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. So that's like a pot that nobody wants. Nobody wants that pot. It's created, but nobody likes it. They just want to get rid of it. Verse 9, for they are gone up to Assyria, a wild ass alone by himself. Ephraim hath hired lovers. So this is a wild ass is like untamed, unreliable, basically. Now, this is Ephraim hath hired lovers. This is basically the northern kingdom seeking political alliances against Assyria by other people. So these alliances and religious covers to do more wickedness, basically. They're building their wealth by making these alliances to build economic structures and go against other nations and things. It's just making their wickedness worse. Verse 10, yea, though they have hired among the nations, now will I gather them, and they shall sorrow a little for the burden of the king of princes. Now, so this is interesting. You can see in this verse the pain of having to pay a heavy tribute to the king of Assyria. But you can also think of this verse as the king, Christ, who pays the price of their sin, how they may be saddened when they learn of it. So this is interesting because you could look at this idea of, yes, they had to pay a tribute to Assyria to kind of keep them at bay from being destroyed for a period of time. But we can look at this and have them realize Christ paid the price for us. He suffered for us. When they finally realize that, they will be sad for their choices. This is conversion. Okay, when you really understand what Christ has done for you, you realize what he's suffered. And it was because of you he suffered it. And when you start to understand that, all you want to do is things that he likes. Remember him and keep his commandments. That's why we study the atonement so much, is to understand it. Because when that concept sticks in your mind, you don't want to do bad because it hurts him. You want to do good because it helps him. That's part of conversion, getting to that point. Verse 11, because Ephraim hath made many altars to sin, altars shall be unto him to sin. So again, idol worship is going to be turn against and go bad against Ephraim, basically. Verse 12, I have written to him the great things of my law, but they were counted as a strange thing. They were given the law, but they said, we don't get it. We don't understand it, so we're going to throw it aside and do our own thing. Verse 13, they sacrifice flesh for the sacrifices of mine offerings and eat it, but the Lord accepteth them not. Now will he remember their iniquity and visit their sins. They shall return to Egypt. So this is, if you remember, we talked about this in chapter 6, I believe, the idea of the false religions doing it fake. God wants true connection with him, not just fake oblations. That's what they're doing, is he's not accepting their offerings because they're fake. They're going through the motions, they're acting religious, but are not truly religious inside. That's the problem. And then this idea of they shall return to Egypt. Now a portion of Israel does go back to Egypt after the Babylonian conquest, but what this really means is they're going to go back to captivity, like they were in Egypt, basically. So Assyria is the new Egypt. They're going into captivity, basically. Verse 14, for Israel hath forgotten his maker, and buildeth temples, and Judah hath multiplied fenced cities. But I will send a fire upon his cities, and it shall devour the palaces thereof. So they're trying to build their assets and their wealth, but they're forgetting that they need to focus on following their God and doing what he has asked of them. So are we really truly doing what God wants in our life, or are we pursuing the mighty dollar? Are we working so that we can go on vacation and have nice big fancy homes, or are we working so that we can make life better for other people? There's a perspective change that's good to think about there, and that's kind of what he's getting at here. Israel was focused on their own self-aggrandizement, not helping people out. And that's part of the problem that they ran into, basically. So let's jump over to the next chapter of Hosea as we continue forward.